Welcome to Lorelle's WordPress School. We're going to continue talking about WordPress structure and content organization. This time we're focusing on categories and tags in WordPress. Remember, all of these are part of the puzzle, all the little pieces that make up WordPress. We've talked about pages and posts, now categories and tags. And our goal is to take all these puzzle pieces and put them together and make it the beautiful picture that your WordPress site is, to make it easier to use too. We've talked about WordPress pages and posts, and as a reminder, posts hold timely content. Pages hold timeless content. As we talk about categories and tags, we're going to be focusing on posts, your timely content. Here's another analogy to help you remember the difference between tags and categories. Categories are your table of contents. Tags are your index words. Now, if you think about your site as a book, it makes it much easier to figure out where do you put different things and how do you organize all the content. So I want you to think about opening up your refrigerator and finding an eggplant, aubergine as it's called in many places, and you need to cook it or lose it. So you're going to grab a cookbook off the shelf and look for some recipes. Where do you look first? You look for the index words first, don't you? You go to eggplant or aubergine and you look underneath and you find all of the different recipes for eggplant that have eggplant in it, right? So tags are the index words that would help you micro-categorize your content like eggplants. But what if the cookbook that you grabbed is actually a specialty cookbook dedicated solely to eggplant? I have one of those. I love eggplant. Then the question that you're asking is not what are the recipes that have eggplant in it, because every recipe in the book has eggplant in it. Then you want to look to find out, you ask yourself, what are you in the mood for? Okay, what are you in the mood? You want some baba ganoush, an appetizer, maybe you want an entree, maybe you want a dessert. Then you turn to the table of contents to find those recipes grouped together by type. Those are the categories of your site. Content that's grouped together by topic, by subject. I like thinking of them as your body of content, all grouped together, a collection of content that's all related and interrelated. So categories are your table of contents, and tags are your index words. Another way to think about this is that categories are your site's giant file cabinet. And here's some things that you need to know about categories. Categories make a strong first impression. They're often one of the first things that people look for. Categories inform and educate the reader. They say, this is what I'm talking about. This is where the information is. Look here. Categories group related content together, like I said, bodies of work. And categories are indexed by search engines. Here's an example. I did a search for my name and WordPress tips. And look what turned up. Categories on my site representing the bodies of work that I have done on the subject. So it turned up category WordPress tips, another category blogging tips, and then on another one of my sites, on my educational site, it turned up WordPress tips that's in the WordPress parent category. So categories are indexed by search engines, and when you do a search, categories appear as well as posts on that topic. Choosing the name for your categories is really complex. We're going to talk about how to do this a little more in detail, not only here but also in the class notes. But I want you to think about this when it comes to naming categories. You need to use words that people will use to find this content. Don't get colorful. Don't get crazy and use weird words or words that are empty and don't mean anything outside of the context. You need to really be specific with these and use words that people will recognize immediately. So I want you again to think about categories as bodies of work, representing a subject, a topic, or a collection of your published work. Think about what you would title that collection, that subject. What would that be? And trust me, as you evolve your site, those names are going to change. You're going to add some, you're going to take them away and replace names. In your class notes, I've put together a site Brainstorm PDF worksheet for your content structure. And here's how it works. I want you to download this, print out this form, grab the pen or paper, pencil, extra paper, whatever you need. And I want you to brainstorm a list of all the topics you wish to cover on the site. I want you to spend at least 25 minutes to 30 minutes. I would prefer if you spend an hour. I want you to really just open up your imagination and write down all the words that describe what you're going to talk about. There's something magic about that 20-minute mark, so I want you to get past that 20-minute mark and see what happens. And keep pushing it, because this is your site. This is your voice on the web. So really write down everything you can imagine you'd want to talk about. Then group the words together into 4 to 7 groupings. Yes, I know, those are your categories. So group these together and select a title to represent each group or each category. Make sure that it's a significant descriptive words or phrase. Then I want you to break this down and write 5 post titles per each group title for each category name. Something interesting may happen here, and I don't want to give away any of the secrets, but it's really fascinating when you think you know what you want to talk about, when you know the purpose of your site, and then you start coming up with post titles. Don't write the whole post, just the post title. There'll be some categories where you will sit there, you will write 2 ideas, and that's it. You won't have another idea in your head. Then there will be those where you'll have 25, 50, 100 different post titles. What does that mean? Well, it means you might need to revise the group titles if necessary to get them right, because maybe your passion lies in a little bit of a different direction than you thought it did originally. This is a fantastic exercise. I do this with all my clients, whether they have an existing site or they're brand new to having a website. It really helps to shift your focus and tap into where your talents are, where your passions are. So dig into that exercise and find out what your categories are, and you might surprise yourself. So let's go through a quick example. Let's say I want to create a Star Trek site. So I've made my huge list, and here's just a little sample of them that we can work with. So I want to talk about all these different things that deal with Star Trek. Here's my list. Now I need to take that list and start grouping them together into just a few categories. Here's my category list. Star Trek TV, Star Trek movies, Star Trek fans, Star Trek news, the Star Trek universe. Now you notice I put Star Trek in front of each one because I'm being really specific. If I was just writing about TV, movies, fans, and news and universe, you'd have no idea what I was talking about. Now it seems a little excessive, but I'm being very specific here. So as you choose your names for your categories, try to put them in context. And by saying Star Trek TV, Star Trek movies, I'm putting it in context. Now let's start sorting these out and putting these different things into their different groups. As you can see, under Star Trek TV, I've put TV shows, trivia, characters, Starfleet, quotes, books, cast and staff, and ships. That's appropriate for the TV show. Now, what are we going to put into movies? We're putting movies. Oh, trivia, characters, Starfleet, quotes, books. Notice some repetition here. There's no reason, there's no rules that say you cannot put a category in more than one, a post in more than one category. There's no rules. I hear people say there's rules, 1 post per category. That is not true. Now, the mistake you make is to take 1 post and put it into every single category. That means there's either something wrong with the post or there's something wrong with your categories. That's a different matter. But you can put a post in multiple categories if it is appropriate. Be judicial, but you can do that. All right, what are we going to put in Star Trek fans? We're going to look at games, fan fiction, fan movies, products and toys, conferences and clubs. That seems appropriate. In Star Trek news, you notice there's some overlap again, because there's going to be news about the TV shows, there's going to be news about the movies and about the cast and so on, and that's appropriate for news. So we can put those posts in 2 or more categories. but we're being really specific that this is news. Now, what are we going to put in the Star Trek universe? Well, I don't know what we're going to put because I'm rather stymied. Everything in that list goes in the Star Trek universe, right? But truthfully, what does that mean? What is the Star Trek universe? I was really excited. I thought this was a brilliant category. But everything goes in there. So I put everything in Star Trek universe plus TV, movies, fans, and news. Maybe I don't need that category because the other categories are doing their job. Let's get rid of it. Now I'm having another problem here with the concept of Star Trek fans. What do you think of when if you saw a category that was called Star Trek fans? Let's see, is it about the fans? So are we going to go out and interview fans, have fans post articles, highlight who's a fan of Star Trek? Or is it information related to fans, like, you know, their meetings, their conferences, their gatherings, things fans need to know? Which one is it? Well, how about we clean this up? We're going to call it Star Trek Fan News. That makes a lot more sense, doesn't it? And it's very specific. Now we know what it is. This is the tweaking I'm talking about. You think you might be specific. You think you might be using a word that everybody understands, but it may only apply to you. Categories need to be for your readers. They need to be able to glance and know immediately that this is the place that they can find this information. So I have Star Trek TV, movies, fans, and what about all these words that we had sitting over here originally? Yeah, those are your tags. The words are important because they got you to this point. It doesn't mean you will or will not talk about these subjects, but these are the keywords that represent the content on your site. So when you start to add content through posts, you're going to add these tags to every post to give that index word chance, that opportunity for people to find related content. So we've been talking about categories and tags. Here's another example. Categories are your table of contents. What is this site about? Some of you may say dogs. Yeah, first glance, it's about dogs. It's about dog training. Specifically, it is about working dogs. It's about working dogs. Service dogs, rescue dogs, companion dogs, dogs that work for humans. Yeah, I bet you figured that out. Let's see if the tags support that. Look at news, therapy, therapy tags. You notice that some of these tags are also category names. There is no reason why, in fact, I highly recommend it, that you use tags to be the same word as your category. They're still keywords. They're still words that belong in your index. Do you think that these words represent what would be covered on this site dealing with working dogs? When you land on a site and you see this collection of words and list of words over in the sidebar, this is information that tells people what this site is about. It says you're in the right place. This is the site with the answers that you need. Here's one example of how categories can look on a site. Notice that there are parent categories and child categories. We call them subcategories as well. And this is what tags look like, specifically a tag cloud. I've pulled it off the sidebar because it's long. Can you tell what this site is about? If you just ignored the header art and everything else, do these words represent what the site is about? Yeah, it does. Here's the structure of a WordPress site for managing its content. Again, we have the pages, the timeless content. Pages can have sub-pages. We have all the rest of the content. We have posts, and posts are organized by category, subcategories, and tags. So one of the greatest blights on the web for me when it comes to WordPress sites and tags and categories is the concept of the uncategorized category. By default, all WordPress sites come with a category called uncategorized, and then people ignore it and they skip it. Or they get in a hurry to publish and they leave it checked because it's checked by default. Later on I'll show you how to remove that, but for right now, this is the default. This is how WordPress works. And when you have your content set to be uncategorized, you send a message to people. Because uncategorized posts speak phenomenally loudly. It sends messages to people. It interrupts that first impression that you want to make because here's this big word that says uncategorized. It tells a visitor that this person, this site and the site owner and the authors, contributors, they lack attention to detail. They don't know what they're talking about. When you see something that says uncategorized is the biggest category, well then you're saying, wow, these people really don't know what they're talking about. I've heard this over and over. This is not my opinion. I ask people as I travel around the world and I give trainings, presentations, and keynotes. I ask people, I say, what do you think when you see uncategorized as the biggest category on a site? And this is what they tell me. They don't know what they're talking about. They're cluttered, disorganized. Everything is a mess. Doesn't say mess, doesn't mean any of those things, but that's the impression people get. And what I hear over and over and over again, I don't want to work with them. I don't want to do business with them. I'm not going to buy from them. Because they're cluttered and disorganized, don't know what they're talking about, and they lack attention to detail. It's fascinating that not checking the categories right and leaving uncategorized checked, the impact that has on a first impression. Which brings me to your first lesson when it comes to web design and web development. It is all about the details because every pixel matters. Every pixel counts. A pixel is the measurement that's used on a web page. It's the smallest part of a web page because these details matter and people pay attention to them. So that is everything you would like to know, at least on the very surface. We'll be talking more about categories and tags and their impact within a WordPress site as we go forward. But that's a basic introduction, and I look forward to seeing you on lorelle.wordpress.com for more WordPress School lessons.